I started running about 10 months ago, and last week I ran a marathon. In this video, I'm going to tell you why I chose to run a marathon, how I ran it, and what I learned. I've struggled with anxiety and depression a lot of my life, ever since I was a kid. I've been addicted to video games, TV, and porn. I got kicked out of my high school because I wasn't showing up to any of my classes, which led me to go to an alternative school, and I flunked out of that. I didn't fail any of my classes because I didn't understand the school material or wasn't that smart. I failed because I was depressed and didn't see any future at all for myself. I had deep emotional pain in my life because of bullies and insecurities. To cope with those painful emotions, I used porn, video games, TV, music, and junk food. After years of depression and trying everything I could to get out of it, I was pretty hopeless that I could ever change. That was until the fall of last year when I learned about this guy named David Goggins. When I learned about David Goggins, I couldn't stop listening to his podcast because the things that he was saying were 100% true, and I knew it. I bought his book and started reading it, and I was amazed at how a 300-pound man could turn his life around and become a Navy SEAL, an ultramarathon runner, and so much more. I got excited reading this book and listening to all the David Goggins podcasts. It made me think I could turn my life around too. I remember listening one day on my computer and getting a sudden surge of motivation to run. I got my headphones, put on the Rocky theme song, put on my jacket and tennis shoes, and went out on a run. I ran pretty much as fast as I could for about 2 miles. Halfway through my run, my lungs felt like they were on fire, and I could hardly breathe, but I kept on going. When I finally got home, I collapsed on the floor and felt nauseous and lightheaded. I laid there on the floor for about an hour, catching my breath and feeling terrible. After that experience, I thought that I just sucked at running and that there was no way I could run every day. See, the reason I first started running was to exercise every day and stay in shape. I also thought that running could help with my mental health. I remember another time when I went out on a run. I did pretty much the same thing as I did the last time. I ran 1 or 2 miles pretty fast, and when I got home, I felt nauseous and sick. I didn't understand what I was doing wrong or why I was failing every single time. But in the past, I had done so many things to try and heal my depression, so I really didn't want to give up on this. I eventually learned that the only way I could keep a sustainable running schedule was if I started small. So I decided to wake up at 6:45 every morning and run to the end of the street and back, and then take a 2 to 3 minute cold shower. I had a little piece of paper with boxes for the running and cold shower, and I would cross off each box when I did the thing. And something to keep in mind was that when I started doing this, it was the middle of winter. My run was cold, and my cold shower was extra cold. When I first started, I did the run and cold shower every day for 2 weeks, and then one day I slipped up and missed a few days. I thought, okay, I'll go back. So the next week I came back, determined to do it every day, and went out for about a week, and then I slipped up again. For about a month or two, I was in this cycle of constantly trying and failing, and trying and failing. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. After about 3 months of me originally coming up with this plan, I quit, just like I quit so many things in the past. But during the springtime, I was talking to my brother, and he knew that I was a fan of David Goggins, so he asked me, "Are you going to run a marathon?" I don't know if he was joking or not, but I got excited by the idea of it, and the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to do it. I went online and looked up marathons near me, and saw that there was one in my city in 2 months, and I decided I was going to run it. The only problem was the first 2 weeks of my training would be while I was on vacation with my family in Texas and California. It's crazy enough to try and go from nothing to a marathon in 2 months, but it was even crazier to train while on vacation. I thought that nothing could stop me. My mom bought me some running shoes from a thrift store, and my dad said he'd help me run some of the days because he used to run track in high school. The first week I was in Texas, I ran 5 or 6 miles almost every day, and then it was Saturday, the 10-mile run day. I was staying with my aunt and uncle at the time, and they live out in the woods, and pretty much the only place where I could run was up and down this dirt road that was pretty hilly. It was hard, but I finished it, and afterwards my legs felt dead. That day and the day after, it hurt to walk. I had to walk slowly anywhere I went. The run on the following Monday was hard because my quads were super sore, and I also had pretty bad shin splints because my running shoes were crap. But I just kept on running it every day. After the first week, me and my family went to California. We went to Disneyland on one of the days, and if you know anything about Disneyland, you do a lot of walking. I hadn't gone on my run yet that day because we just woke up and went to Disneyland, so I planned on running when we got back. When we did get back though, I was so exhausted and tired that I just flopped into my bed and stayed there. I couldn't muster up the strength to go on a 5 or 6 mile run after a full day at Disneyland. I was super bummed that I didn't go on my run, and the next day I didn't go on my run again, and then the same thing the day after. On Saturday, I ran 10.5 miles next to the beach, but that was about it for that week. The next week when I got back, I ran 1 or 2 days out of the week, but then just gave up. I pushed myself so hard before, and I fell flat on my face so many times that it was just too much for me, and I didn't really think that I could run 26.2 miles in 6 weeks. So I decided to run the half marathon instead. Word got around, and my cousins decided to sign up and run it with me. I was honestly pretty nervous because both of them ran track, and I was just barely getting into running, but I knew that I wanted to run the half. So I created my own running schedule that I could follow for the next few weeks leading up to the race. I missed so many days on my running schedule, it was not good. I did get an 8-mile run in the week before, but I missed so many days, so I felt super nervous going into the race. My cousins came over to stay the night, and I remember my cousin asking me if I was nervous for the race, and I just said no, not at all. That night, I probably got 2 hours of sleep. I was actually super nervous. I didn't know if my lack of sleep would impact my performance, but my cousins told me it would be fine. So I moved on. When we got to the place, my cousins started doing some dynamic stretching, and I just followed along because I didn't really know anything about running. It was finally time to start, and the gun went off, and everybody started. My goal going into the race was to run a 9-minute mile the whole way through, but when I started going, I was at 8:30 or 8:45 pace. I actually felt good, and because I hadn't gotten much sleep the night before, I wasn't really thinking, which was good for me since I wasn't panicking at all. Around the 8-minute mile mark, I realized that I wasn't that tired at all, and that I actually could speed up. I lengthened my stride and passed a good amount of people, and held an 8:15 minute mile until the end. I finished in 1 hour and 48 minutes. I was way faster than I thought I'd be, and somehow my lack of preparedness didn't seem to translate to a bad time. Anyways, a few weeks after the half marathon, I decided I wanted to run the full marathon. There was one coming up in 3 months in September, and I decided I was going to run that one. I got a new training schedule, and I was ready to go. The first few weeks, I missed a few runs, which was disappointing, but it wasn't too bad. One week, I decided to do a dopamine detox, which, if you don't know what that is, it's pretty much a week where, well, at least for me, I didn't watch TV, play video games, listen to music, look at porn, or eat any junk food for a week. I did a lot of reading and journaling, and I was able to work on a song that I was making. It was a great week. After that week, I was locked in. I didn't miss any runs. When I ran, I went faster than the recommended times on my training schedule. I had many hard runs, but I didn't give up, and I kept pushing myself. I was doing super well until one day, about a month and a half away from the race, when I was doing some research about the church that I've been a part of my whole life, when I found out about a lot of things I never knew about before. Many things that were disturbing. I was shocked, and I didn't know what to think about all of it. I was having a faith crisis. I fell into a pretty bad depression and went back to some of my old ways of watching YouTube all day in my room and eating crap. I was questioning my church, questioning God, and questioning my existence. While all this was going on, I still wanted to run the marathon, so I kept training. I found it a lot harder to run, but I kept on going. One day, on one of my long runs, I ran about 2 miles before stopping because I couldn't get this church stuff out of my head, and my brain was processing all these emotions, so I wound up walking home and not finishing my run. The following week, I missed another run. The week after that, I missed 2 runs, and then in the week before the race, I missed 3 runs. I was nervous before the race, and I was questioning whether I could run 26.2 miles because of how many runs I missed, even though I had done so much training and had run 20 miles before. So the day of the race finally came, and the day before the race, I went to Olive Garden to carb load so that I had lots of energy for the race. The night before, I got about 4 hours of sleep. I was nervous, but I knew I could finish the race. When the race started, I felt ready, and my goal was to keep an 8:45 pace throughout the whole thing and break 4 hours. I started off strong in the first 13 miles and was well on pace. At mile 17, I was beginning to slow down, so I took some blocks out of my pocket and ate a bunch of them. That gave me lots of energy, and I passed a few people between mile 17 and 20. I was going pretty strong, but I could feel my energy depleting, and then at mile 22, my quads all of a sudden gave out. The best way to describe it is that they felt sore and dead at the same time. It was way harder to run, and I slowed down significantly to a 10 or 11 minute mile pace for the last 4 miles. When I crossed the finish line, I was just glad that it was over and that I could go home. I finished with a time of 4 hours and 28 seconds. I was hoping to break 4 hours, but oh well, what are you gonna do, right? I learned so many things running the marathon. One thing that I learned is that you can't expect to be super good at something overnight. Lasting, meaningful change takes time. And one problem I've seen in my life is that I often dream of super cool, hard things I can do, and then I want to do them as soon as I possibly can. At first, when I start, I'm super motivated to do the thing and I try my hardest. Usually, I end up failing at one point or another, and then my motivation and drive slowly fade away and I give up doing the thing entirely. This is where starting small is so important. When you start something, the first step should be making it a routine habit they can do easily. I started out running to the end of the street and back every day. It's so easy, but doing it every day really does add up. I think the reason why a lot of people don't want to start doing the small steps first is because they can't see a future where all the little steps would pay off. Trust me, they do. Start small, work your way up, and show up every day, and eventually you will start to see huge progress. I also learned that failure is a part of the process. I just told you the story of how I ran a marathon from barely any experience in 10 months, but look at all the times I failed, so many times. But I kept on going. Learning to embrace failure is probably one of the most important things I learned from this marathon experience. In the past, I used to get so scared of failing that I wouldn't even try. I would try and plan out everything in my head and account for every little thing. This strategy hardly ever works. There are always going to be unexpected twists and turns in life, and the people that thrive are the people that embrace each new failure as a learning experience and an integral part of the process. A very important thing that I learned is that we are capable of so much more than we think, and most of the time, the thing that's holding us back is ourselves. See, if you don't believe you can run a marathon, then you will likely never try. So often when I would tell someone I was going to run a marathon, they would say, "Oh, I could never do that. That's just too hard." Just simply saying that puts you down so much more than you might think. Believing in yourself sounds so simple, and yet it's so powerful. If you believe in yourself, you can do so much. If you asked me a year ago if I thought I could run a marathon, I would have said, "What makes you think I can run a marathon? I can barely run 1 mile." I had to shift my mindset in order to start progressing. You could relate this idea to starting a business. If you think about it, starting a business is crazy. You have to put at least $50,000 to $100,000 in with no promise of success. You almost have to be delusional to try it. And yet, it's that belief that things will work out that keeps you going on the rainy days. The days when you don't want to get out of bed. The days when you would rather be doing literally anything else. Think about Kung Fu Panda 1 and the Dragon Scroll.
The secret ingredient is nothing.
Huh?
You heard me. Nothing. There is no secret ingredient.
Wait. It's just plain old noodle soup? You don't add some kind of special sauce or something?
Don't have to. To make something special, you just have to believe it's special.
It's nothing! Oh, it's okay. I didn't get it the first time either.
What?
There is no secret ingredient. It's just you.
Ultimately, Poe finds out that the Dragon Scroll does not give you some superpower or give you secrets of the universe. It just shows your reflection. It's just you. At the end of the day, it's just you and what you want to do, and how much you believe in yourself, and how willing you are to accept who you are, and use your unique abilities to do great things. And finally, if you don't know where to start in whatever you're doing, just start. There is no perfect time to start anything, so just go for it. Follow your dreams and see how far they can take you.